Supremacy Games Chapters 86 to 100. Chapter 86 Participating with Anonymous Identity. After leaving the restaurant, Felixs rode his car and drove back home in irritation over wasting his time with a lost cause. Prove himself? He scoffed as he drove speedily in the main road, heading towards his house. She honestly thought that she was worthy of having him a primogenitor bloodline user, bow his head to her brother to get his approval for her hand? He laughed in ridicule at her far-fetched fantasy. In his eyes, the only one worthy enough for him to try that hard was a girl that had Asna's beauty and not her shitty personality. As for other females? Forget it. They wouldn't even be able to catch up to him, even if he slowed his bloodline advancement. The moment he chose this path, his destiny to find a human woman compatible with him was already doomed. His love interest got limited to only a few races that were worthy of being by his side in his long journey. As for others? To put it heartlessly, they were merely burdens. This was why Felixs only searched for a nightstand to ease his desire, but never a full commitment. Plus Felixs had literally billions of secrets to hide, so how was he supposed to do so while being in a relationship? He honestly didn't want to lie every day to his woman. Such a toxic relationship he wanted none of. Might as well hunt in clubs or bars and stop bothering with those princess mentality types. He thought to himself while parking his car in the garage. A few minutes later, Felixs sat in the living room with his leg above the other while clicking on a holographic screen in front of him with a serious expression. After a while, he finished and called for the queen. "I am done filling in the information form. You can apply for my participation now." "Sir Felixs, are you certain that you want to apply using an anonymous persona?" she asked. "Yes please, I want all of my private information to be blocked from everyone." He nodded his head and said, "Also, add that I won't accept interviews during the games." "As you wish, Sir Felixs." A few seconds later, she informed him that his application had been successfully approved by the SGA. "I suggest for you to reread the rules, sir, if you plan to join the games now," she advised with good intentions. "Thank you, Queen, but I am already familiar with them, so there is no need." He smiled. "All right, sir, good luck on the games." Felixs nodded his head and opened his profile interface. He kept scrolling down the basic info until he stopped at a new game start. "Congratulations on picking vehicle format hover cars death race current game MX button." A moment later, a random combination of the three colors dyed the standard car, turning it into a badass looking serpent with its frontal jaw wide open ready to devour anything. Satisfied with this version, Felixs didn't continue mixing the colors anymore. He just pressed save and closed the interface while yawning with a hand covering his mouth. After getting everything done, he immediately went to sleep. Tomorrow was a big day for him. He would test drive this car in his training room using a Solaria planet-based environment to practice thoroughly. After all, that's what those 5 days of preparation were for. Chapter 87 Solaria Planet Hellish Environment. Next morning 9 a.m. Felixs was eating breakfast in his kitchen while having the SG website hologram in front of him. "Queen, please input those keywords in the search bar: bronze, silver, Milky Way galaxy, hover car death race game," he requested while sipping coffee from a mug. A few moments later, the official website page of SG was replaced by a small list that had 6 games. Felixs viewed those games and clicked on the one that's about to start 5 days later, which was the one he was at. Immediately after doing so, the public details of the game that were open for everyone were displayed before him. Felixs ignored obvious details that he already saw yesterday and focused on the players list. Players list. Fire Torch 1544, Bronze mid-tier wins 1 losses 6. For more details click on the name. Magnificent Scent 544, Silver, low tier, wins 3 losses 4. For more details click on the name. Holy Trinity 774, unranked, wins 0 losses 3. For more details click on the name. Absolute Vision, Silver, mid-tier, wins 5 losses 3. For more details click on the name. Unpaid Landlord 6996, unranked, wins 0 losses 0. For more details click on the name. Echo Wave 3478, bronze low tier wins 0 losses 4. For more details click on the name. Mighty Monka _4555, unranked, wins 0/losses 2. For more details click on the name. Felixs found his name buried in the middle of the list and clicked on it. Immediately after, he was transferred to his profile that was open for everyone. After seeing that everything was the same as yesterday, he nodded in satisfaction. One could never be too paranoid in such cases that were tied to life and death situations. So Felixs had to double-check to ease his mind. Might as well scout for those that can be a threat in the game. Felixs glanced at the time and found that it was still early to head to the training center, so he decided to mark the players that might turn to be variables. Although this game had most players in bronze rank or unranked newbies like Felixs, he still had to be careful when dealing with them. One of them might just be a beast in driving and lucked out on this game. Just as expected, his scouting turned to be successful after finding out a contender, who went by the name Easywind 1664, had a victory in a vehicle racing format before. Even though the game is not the same, but still I better have my guard against him. Felixs closed the holographic screen and cleaned the dishes for his breakfast. Despite not needing to eat or clean the dishes in the UVR, he still preferred doing so, as it gives a better sense of realism. 20 minutes later, he changed into his practice outfit and drove towards the training center. Felixs stood in the corner of the elevator indifferently while next to him was surprisingly Nora. She kept sneaking peeks at him each couple of seconds with crimson cheeks. Becky, who was in the elevator with them, kept looking back and forth between Felixs and Nora with a finger resting on her lips. Did something happen during last night's date? I need to find out. My gossipy senses are tingling. She thought to herself as she continued to stare at those two. Abruptly, she walked from her corner and stood in front of Felixs. She raised her head slightly, staring at his eyes, and offered a beautiful smile. "What's your name, handsome?" she asked. Felixs lowered his head and smiled politely at this short-busted girl. "Felixs, nice to meet you, sister." Becky offered her light-tanned hand for a handshake and introduced herself warmly. "I am Becky Melliford, nice to meet you as well." Felixs shook her hand and nodded politely. Nora peeked at their interaction and felt quite uncomfortable about it. But she could only bury that feeling and act disinterestedly toward them by suspiciously playing with her hair and looking at the elevator ceiling. Becky glimpsed at her actions speechlessly. "Girl, can you step up your act a bit? You are embarrassing yourself." Meanwhile, Felixs never bothered to even give Nora a glance. He treated her just like air in the elevator. He was dead serious about what he told her on their date. A few moments later, they reached the 22th floor and stepped inside. "See you later, Becky." Felixs waved his hand with a mild smile and walked ahead of them towards his room. Becky chased after him quickly and touched his bracelet. She then went back to Nora, who was staring daggers at her for some reason. Felixs heard the notification that a new ID had been added to his UVR chat contacts and continued walking towards his room unbothered. Now was not the time to flirt around, but to focus on his upcoming game. Felixs must ace those next 4 placement games to be placed straight away in peak silver tier. If not, he would take a huge amount of time to climb from bronze to silver then gold, since there was a 2 months break period after each game. This rule had been added the moment the participation became a public affair. Simply because, there were millions of new players joining the games each day, and without this kind of limitation, the platform would destroy itself after not being able to handle the players spamming games every single day. The Queen with her behemoth processing power would still fail to handle all of this data at the same time. Plus, the games would flood the platform, confusing the spectators on which one was good to watch. Most importantly, the Alliance didn't have an infinite number of prizes to reward that massive number. Therefore this rule was a must, to keep the stability of the platform. Heck, as we speak, the SGA Rules Committee was looking for a way to increase the duration without offending the hardcore players, who try to climb the ranking ladder as fast as they could. After a couple of hours, Felixs had successfully modified his room to have a racing track within the Solaria planet environment. The entire room turned into a furnace with a heat surpassing 58 degrees Celsius, due to the 3 suns above the room. Felixs replicated exactly everything that the Solaria planet was known for in his racing track, ranging from massive suns, cracked land, and deep canyons to deserts and even volcanoes. He did so because the game details only mentioned the planet and not the exact environment. So he had to improvise and mix everything together to have a complete exercise. Felixs wiped his sweaty palms with a towel and entered his car that seemed more like an oven in this hellish heat. Ah! Ah! The moment he sat on the leather seat, he yelped in pain and jumped outside the car with smoke rising from his ass. F***ck, my ass would be cooked before the game even starts. Irritated, he snapped his finger quickly and the burnt marks on his ass cheeks were healed. After doing so, he reopened the customization interface and clicked on the interior of his car. Then he pressed on the standard leather seats and replaced them with heat-absorbing ones. But he did not stop there, as he felt the inside of the car was too stuffy. Thus, he upgraded the air conditioner of the car to ease breathing inside a little. Alright, those minor modifications will probably pass through the rebalancing checkup easily, he said casually while pressing on save. Instantly, the car interior seats were changed to icy blue leather seats. Felixs sat on them and his ass was greeted with a coolness that eased his tense expression. He then closed the door and activated the upgraded air conditioner that did not fail his expectations, as the stuffy atmosphere in the car was replaced with warmness. Ah, such a bless! Felixs exhaled in comfort while wearing the seat belt on. After double-checking everything, he nodded his head in satisfaction and ignited the engine. Momentary after, the car hovered slightly above the ground without letting a single sound. After all, the hovercar was relying on anti-gravity technology to fly, instead of using multiple thrusters at the bottom to uplift it. There were only 2 thrusters, and they were at the back of the car responsible for its acceleration. That being said, the car could only reach a max of 100 meters above the ground. Any higher and the anti-gravity technology would turn null, forcing the car to drop down into its rightful range. Felixs clutched the steering wheel that resembled an airplane yoke and pulled it slightly towards him. The hovercar responded simultaneously and uplifted itself higher. Felixs smirked while pushing the accelerator to the limit. Whoosh! The sound of wind could be heard as Felix's hovercar sped away, leaving only a cloud of brownish dust behind him. Chapter 88 Nora and Asna. Felixs spent the next 12 hours continuously running laps around the track. The first lap was warm-up, but after that, he added 50 AI to race with him, just like the number of the players. He wanted to set the AI at the extreme difficulty to make the race hell, but sadly only the upper floors had those kinds of advanced AI dummies. So he had to settle for hard difficulty. However, they still made the race nigh impossible to win for Felixs, since all of them ganged up on him the moment the race began. Felixs, after taking a beating for the first couple hours without any way to resist the salvo of abilities and vehicles ramming into him, folded and returned the race to a normal setting, which was free for all. His arrogance was quickly curbed and decided to race obediently like expected. Thus, the following hours were spent on finding unique ways to take advantage of the 4 launchers he added to his car by using his abilities. Some worked just fine, while some outright failed and caused him to lose some races. That's how the first day of practicing went, some wins, some losses. But Felixs was never worried about this instability since he still had 4 more days to work things out. Felixs left the training center and walked towards his parked car while spinning the key around his finger with a lax attitude. Yet, he soon sighed helplessly after seeing Nora leaning on his car door, blocking him from entering the driver's seat. If only abilities were allowed to be used in public, he would have paralyzed her and drove away. Sadly, he could only stare at her indifferently, waiting for her to understand the situation and leave. Nora flinched slightly from his cold stare and tightened her thighs closely to each other. Felixs gazed at her weird behavior and instantly understood her type. He then grinned slightly and thought, I might as well tame her when I'm free, but for now, she can only curb her desire until I deal with my priorities. Felixs walked forward step by step until he was face to face with Nora. He stared right in her eyes, yet, she kept avoiding making eye contact with him. Are you going to let me enter my car, or should I call the enforcers to take you away? Felixs threatened her coldly. Nora breathed ruggedly from her parted lips after hearing his cold voice. She wanted to replay, but she couldn't say anything as her thoughts were in a complete mess. What's happening to me? Why do I get aroused each time he treats me badly? Is it just because of him, or was I always like this? Unfortunately for her, Felixs didn't have the time to wait until she figured out her true self. He squeezed her cheeks until her red plump lips resembled a blowfish mouth and ordered her frigidly, be a good girl and enjoy yourself in the side. Don't block my way. Speechless, he immediately released Nora's cheeks as he saw that her eyes were about to roll back in her head. Hog! An unexpected soft moan escaped from Nora's parted lips, as she slid into the floor and sat with her legs twitching from time to time. Already? The hell, I barely did anything. Felixs glanced at her quivering legs, intrigued over her sensitivity. In his previous life, he dealt with quite a few girls such as her type, but all of them needed more than what he just did to even get off. Whatever, I will deal with her after the game. He thought one last time while Princess carrying her to the training center. After putting her near the door of the center, he instructed the Queen to log her out. The Queen AI checked on her condition and found out she would be endangered to assaults if stayed in the UVR in such a condition. So she activated the emergency logout protocol. After seeing her disintegrate into light particles, Felixs cleaned his sticky wet hand that accidentally touched her thigh and walked back to his car. The moment he sat on the driver's seat, those distracting thoughts were completely uprooted from his head. The only thing he should be thinking now was how to win the game. Nothing more, nothing less. Unfortunately, that seemed too big of a wish today, as he remembered that another vixen was waiting for his visit today. A vixen, far more dangerous than the obedient Nora. Felixs had to have full control of his emotions and body reaction after he sees Asna's otherworldly beauty. Otherwise, he would never hear the end of it. Inside the consciousness lake, Felixs stood up while massaging his temples to ease up the dizziness that follows always after entering this place. A couple of seconds later, he began moving towards the mist mansion. He did not wait for Asna to force him to enter, instead, he preferred to do so while she was still asleep. So he could build his immunity one last time before the fateful meeting. After entering through the gate, he saw that the bed was still in the same position. However, Asna was not sleeping on it. Before he could exclaim at his ruined plan, a sudden hug greeted him from behind. Ah, people's touch. I never felt it since the moment I was sealed. Asna murmured softly while hugging Felixs with her eyes closed in contentment. Felix's heartbeats accelerated a notch, but he quickly suppressed his emotions to the limit to stop them from increasing any further. He then relaxed his stiff muscles and enjoyed her hug as well. For a breathtaking beauty such as Asna to hug him by her will, it was truly a chance not to be passed on. And so, both of them kept in the same position for a couple of minutes, not saying a single word to break this atmosphere. Suddenly, Asna opened her closed eyes, exposing a crafty glint. Initial step has gone smoothly. Now I just need to turn his head slowly and stare at his eyes, and he will be mine. Asna did exactly as she planned. She first broke off from the hug and held Felix's neck between her long pale fingers. Then, she turned his head gently to face her while having the most charming smile she could muster. However, that was as far as her plan took her. As, Immediately after Felixs faced her, he crushed her heart and arrogance with merely one sentence that he practiced thousands of times just for this moment. Meh, I have seen better. Chapter 89, Felix's victory, yet at what cost? Asna almost spat blood on his face after hearing him disparage her beauty to such a degree. She never expected not in a million years to receive such a lackal.u.s.ter reaction to her beauty that she took pride in. She looked at his slight smug smile and wanted nothing more but to bash his face with her elbow. However, she suppressed her anger and continued her plan. If he thought that was all she had in her pocket, he would be dead wrong. She suddenly felt faint and leaned on his body. She laid her head on his chest and started to breathe softly with flushed cheeks. Felixs caught her between his arms and said in irritation, I know what you are doing, Asna, but you can stop now. You won't be able to charm me no matter what. He looked at her quivering eyelashes with a warm smile and said, after all, your age is 20 million years old or above. Asna instantly froze in his arms like an electric shock coursed through her body after hearing him mention her damned age. But Felixs did not stop hitting her where it hurts, as he added with a disheartened tone, to actually try to seduce a 17-years-old kid while you are as old as the universe. You truly make me look down on you, Asna. He patted her stiff shoulders gently and promised, don't worry, this will not affect our partnership. After all, everyone has flaws. After seeing that she wasn't responding to anything, neither his words nor his touch, he carried her stiff body and put her in the bed. He pulled the blanket up until only her deadpan face was left in the open. Afterward, he squatted next to her face and popped her nose affectionately with his finger. It was good seeing you at last, Asna. Even though I expected an old hag, I have to say. He paused for a bit as he saw a small shimmer was still burning in her eyes. He offered the warmest smile he could muster and said, my expectations were not off the mark. Asna's last shimmer died instantly at his brutal remark. She just continued to lay on the bed motionless with her yellowish eyes darkened. Felixs closed her eyelids with 2 fingers like he was doing it to a corpse. Then, he exited the consciousness with a satisfied smirk on his face. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click number S victory yet at what cost _47456828115707059 for visiting. In this battle, he emerged victorious over Asna. All of his preparations and defense building was for this moment. He wanted to utterly shatter any future attempts by Asna on him. He didn't want to be teased and harassed each time he visited his consciousness. Hell, if he wasn't this heavy-handed on her, the next time he pays her a visit, Asna would probably welcome him wearing sexy lingerie in her bed to seduce him and manipulate him. God knows how long his rationality would last before his primal instinct takes over and force him to do things he would regret. But now she wouldn't dare do so anymore after being called a grandma who was trying to seduce a kid. Felixs wanted to have a normal conversation with her, but that wouldn't happen if she kept doing those shenanigans. So, the only solution was to hit her most prized beauty heartlessly until she would question either his manhood or that her perfect beauty was flawed somehow. Still, mentioning her true age was a salty move he wasn't proud of. Alas, what's done is done. Felixs only hoped that it was worth it. 4 days quickly passed by, as Felixs spent them wholly on doing only one thing, and that was to practice in his room until he dropped in the ground exhausted. Meanwhile, Nora always tried to strike a conversation by following him everywhere like a puppy. But, Felixs ignored all of her attempts and even blocked her ID chat after getting spammed with her messages. Nora's extreme methods to approach Felixs began to raise some weird rumors on the floor. The men believed that Felixs did her and stopped caring about her, while the girls gossiped that Nora fell for Felixs but he was not interested in her. The only one in the club who had a different opinion about this farce was the giant leader, Nora's brother. He believed that his dear sister was bullied by Felixs and he must break his jewels to set an example for others in the club. Unfortunately, he never found a good chance to confront Felixs without appearing as a bully. After all, he was a peak stage 2 bloodliner, while Felixs was assumed to be at peak stage 1 in his opinion. Days went by, and he kept watching his sister following Felixs everywhere like his maid without being able to do anything about it. One could only imagine the bolted rage inside of him currently, simply waiting for the day it would explode on Felixs without giving a crap about the consequences. That day was approaching, as the only thing left was the fuse to light up the giant. Meanwhile, Asna cut off the connection between them completely and never spoke again. Felixs expected as much from her. It would be weird if she didn't throw some kind of tantrum after he brought her to dirt from her high superiority seat. But, he didn't care currently if she remained offline since he already reached 100% affinity enhancement long ago, while his bloodline integration had reached a dead end after not finding any Jormungandr essence in the previous bloodlines he purchased. So, he decided to give her time to cool off until he pays her another visit and see if she was going to have a normal conversation with him or try to charm him again. Felixs stood in front of the mirror while changing his current disguise to another one that would be exclusively used for the games. He already spent 3 hours, but still was not satisfied with the results. He was taking this seriously because he knew that it was a totally different matter from having a random face in the UVR. This face would accompany him through his entire journey in the individual games. And the SGA would pay him hefty sums of SC in each game based on his reputation and popularity within the audience. Thus, he must choose an image that would bring him the highest amount of revenue while still not releasing any private information about him. He wasn't planning on going a full-fledged idol like the majority of the SG idol-type players. However, he would be a fool to miss such free money coming his way. He knew that in his bloodline path, every coin mattered. Felixs stopped bothering with random creations and decided to search in the VR network engine for a face to replicate slightly. Who is handsome to the point it's deadly and addictive? He imputed this question in the search bar, and immediately got millions of results. He studied the faces of those handsome men and kept clicking his tongue in wonder at how many potions and treasures they had to eat to appear like this. But still, he didn't find that X factor that would set him apart from the other players. A factor that only a few people had, such as Asna. Abruptly, his eyes shone with delight after imagining Asna's face and comparing it with those men. He found out that their beauty, which they spent billions of coins on, looked dog shit compared to Asna's natural face. Without further ado, he asked out loud in his mind. Asna, mind letting me use your face as a mold for my disguise? Yet, he received no response. He expected as much from her. If you don't replay back in 3 seconds, I will take it as your approval. 3. 2. 2.5. 1. 1.5. 1.25. Almost 1. With a serious voice, he kept counting backward slowly until he reached 0, yet Asna still didn't reply. Felixs began to feel a little bit spooked about her silence. He felt that based on her character she would definitely use this chance to counterattack his previous claim of saying that he saw a better beauty than her. After all, why bother asking for her face if there were better-looking people than her, right? But she didn't, which was uncanny to Felixs. He checked the time on his AP bracelet and saw that there was still 1 hour before he gets teleported to the game hall. So, he decided to re-enter his consciousness and check on her situation. Inside the consciousness lake, in the mist-made mansion. Speechless and bewildered, Felixs stared at Asna, who returned to her flame spirit form and was hovering above the bed slightly. He knew that she was going to throw a tantrum, but he never realized it would be this bad. Chapter 90, Entering the Game Hall. Felixs realized that he struck a nerve by his heavy attacks after seeing Asna behave like this. After all, how could a shameless woman like her who ate insults for breakfast get affected by his remarks? Asna, what's up with you? Felixs asked a bit worried while approaching her slowly. Asna didn't respond to his question, she merely kept flicking above her bed in utter silence. Felixs sat next to her and sighed after seeing that she was thoroughly ignoring his existence. Asna, I don't know if my insults are the reason for you behaving like this or something else. However, I am sorry if said something I shouldn't. Felixs apologized while bowing his head slightly without fanfare. He might be an asshole to her most of the time since that's how their relationship was, bickering and throwing insults at each other casually. But if he really affected her somehow or some way, he was not ashamed to apologize to her. Ultimately, she deserved this much as his partner and tenant. All right, I leave you alone for now. I got a game to win. After noticing that nothing much changed even with his apology, he stood up and walked away. But after the game, I will return to check on you. He added one last time before his form dissolved into mist and returned back in the lake. In front of the mirror, Felixs stopped changing his disguise and began browsing for masks in the VR shop. He wanted to use Asna's face as his mold since he was positive that his popularity would exceed everyone else just by his appearance. But he couldn't use it unless he got Asna's permission. So he could only use a mask for the first game temporarily until he fixed his relationship with her. After a while, he chose a black hoodie that covered half his face, showing darkness in the upper half and leaving the lower half exposed. Mainly, just his mouth and chin. If the hoodie didn't have a yellow smirky emoji sticker on its chest, he would have appeared a bit badass. But honestly, who are we kidding? Felixs was literally planning to join the game wearing sweatpants, white sneakers, and above all that hoodie. He appeared more like he was heading to the grocery store to buy cigarettes and not join deadly games that he might lose his life in. This will do for now. Felixs clicked purchase and closed the shop. Then, he sat in utter silence, trying to calm his mind before he gets teleported inside the game hall. Good evening, contenders. A thin man with one mouth on each side of his cheeks greeted warmly the 50 unique players that were standing under him in a massive well-lighted hall. The hall somewhat resembled the ancient ballrooms, as it had a humongous gorgeous chandelier right in the middle, plenty of paintings hanging on the walls, and most importantly a stage with a podium on it. Felixs lifted his head slightly and gazed at this game's MC, who was standing behind the podium, with a hint of surprise. Never thought the four-lipped Marlian would commentate for us. This game is getting interesting each time. As usual, I will explain the details of this game, as well as provide answers to any questions you have after my explanation. Marlian did not waste any time as he straightway began his explanation of the rules of the game that were not listed in full detail, or were listed but need quite a hefty effort to just find them. Let's start with the streaming revenue. Currently, there are 50 participants in this death race. Based on the SGA rules, the revenue will be split 80% for the Alliance and 20% for you. Irked, Marlian paused his explanation after seeing some newbies make disgruntled noises on this arrangement. On what basis does the Alliance take 80% all at once and leave us to fight over their crumbles? That's right. We are the ones risking our lives here. At least give us 1% each as basic courtesy. Tisk, if I knew the Alliance was this greedy, I would not have bothered taking part. Felixs observed indifferently those newbies making a scene due to their laziness to read the entire SG contract. After all, everything about the SG was within the contract. As long as one took his time to read it carefully, he would avoid those kinds of embarrassing situations. Exactly like this case, as every veteran or smart newbie either laughed mockingly while pointing their fingers or gave a piteous look at those buffoons, who stood dumbstruck after seeing the situation unfolds beyond their script. They believed that the revenue arrangement was truly unfair to the players. Hence, they expected some form of agreement from their peers or at least act indifferently like Felixs. Too bad, they had to learn the hard way to respect each contract they sign. Pop. 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 A single finger snap from Marlian exploded their brains to oblivion, killing them both here and in real life. Not a single player got their clothes dirted by the brain's matter and juices that sprayed everywhere. They knew what was about to happen beforehand, thus the moment those morons opened up their mouths, they put a quite substantial distance between them. Everything was within the contract. One just needs to read it. Now that we dealt with the normal pests, let's carry on our explanation. Marlian casually spoke after killing 4 players with cold blood. Yet, no one bothered to call him out on his actions. They simply listened with concentration to him, continuing his explanation from where he left. And this time, no one interrupted him. The 20% will be split based on 3 bases: popularity, victory, and eliminations. Marlian extended 3 fingers and followed. First, the popularity. The more fans you have within the viewers, whether live or on stream, the more percentages you will earn. He closed 1 finger. Second, the victory. This one is no-brainer. If you won the game you will get straightaway 3% all at once, without counting your popularity increase of course. He then left only 1 finger and continued a bit enlivened than before. Lastly, eliminations. The more you kill the more you excite the game for the audience. And anyone who does so will be rewarded with more revenue. So you better fight as brutal as possible, otherwise even if you won the game, your revenue won't be that high. Marlian said while smiling creepily with only his left cheek mouth. Some newbies got extra motivated from his claim, but still, the majority merely rubbed their ears in boredom over this weak attempt to force them to focus on fighting and not emerging as the champion. They were not stupid to give up on victory for mere some revenue, while they could obtain a wish after being crowned as the champion. Honestly, Marlian didn't even target those veterans who were well aware of his plan. But, the unranked newbies, v.i.r.g.i.ns, who were playing for the very first time. He wanted them to seek fights instead of hiding cowardly like the majority of new players do after entering the game. Now, let's move on to what you should expect in the game. Marlian did not dilly-dally anymore on the revenue explanation and moved on to the nitty-gritty details that Felixs and those veterans wanted to hear. As only in this hall, where could they see the game map, the hidden additions, and ask about the things they didn't understand from the listed rules. This was the purpose of the game hall. Chapter 91, The Map and the Hidden Addition. Marlian pressed on a button in his podium and a large screen descended slowly from behind him. Thudung. Immediately after stopping, Marlian turned it on and displayed a humongous red planet. This is Solaria planet, where your race will be held. He introduced composedly. Now let's take a look at your race track. The vision rapidly zoomed inside the red planet until it stopped above an empty crimson desert that didn't have a single living being above it, or probably even underneath it. This is where you will start the race, and also finish. He pointed a finger at the long line made of black and white squares in the desert. Multiple sighs of relief resounded in the hall after seeing the desert. This only meant that most of them included it in their practice just like Felixs. Unfortunately, their relieved expression did not last for long after Marlian introduced the second area of the race. After exiting the desert, you will enter this canyon. The players' expressions instantly turned unsightly after seeing the narrow paths of the canyon that only allowed a maximum number of 3 cars hovering beside each other. They knew that a massacre would begin before they reached the canyon. Since, if they entered it all at once, those at the front would always be free targets to those behind them. Simply because there was no space to maneuver. Marlian ignored their noises and moved on to the third area of the race. The end of the canyon is connected to tunnels leading to the underground. He gave his trademark creepy smile and joked, "Don't worry about visibility. The river of lava underneath will take care of it." No one laughed at his tasteless joke after seeing the river spewing bursts of lava upward, reaching at least 200 meters in height. Their F***ing hovercars were only able to reach 100 meters in height. How are we supposed to fly through that? They thought to themselves. This race is getting harder and harder, I doubt many will walk out of it alive, especially the newbies. Felixs paid his condolence to the poor newbies who lucked out in this tragic game. Yet, things only kept getting worse and worse as Marlian continued to show the following areas. Starting off by leaving the underground from the mouths of inactive volcanoes. The messed up part was that the majority of them were freaking active. So the players had to find an exit from their first shot. Otherwise, they would get delayed significantly. However, Even if they managed to leave the underground smoothly, the only thing that would greet them was a sea of lava they had to pass through successfully to reach the red desert and then the starting/finish line. After so a lap would be marked as complete. That's the race track, and to win the game you simply have to course 3 laps in it. The MC casually belittled the track hellish areas. Make 3 laps in it? They doubted they would survive the first one. Felixs was not despairing as the majority of those players after seeing the track. After all, he had seen much worse before. He was only slightly surprised that the Alliance actually used one of those maps for a bronze game, where newbies' numbers were at best. Moving on to Hidden Edition. Without further ado, Marlian pressed a button and suddenly the empty track had aqua-bluish boxes with marks on them hovering randomly in every track area. Felixs looked at those boxes speechlessly. Why do they resemble a famous game on my planet? His speculation soon turned to be slightly off the mark by Marlian detailed clarification. Those boxes contain 3 types of results. 1. Abilities that can be used on you or against others. 2. Items from the prize pool. You can even obtain Purity Fountain drop inside one. Yet before he continued to the last result, the players went completely bonkers after hearing about the second result. What the hell? Doesn't this means we can just farm items inside the race without bothering about first place? This is exactly what I am going to do. I already know that my driving skills are trash, so it's better to just earn free items. True, I might do the same. Aiku. Silence. Not a single peep was heard anymore after Marlian's shout. They knew that he could pop their brains easily like the 4 dead bodies near them. He just needed to wait until they broke a rule and take care of them. That's why MCS in the SG should always be shown respect in the game they commentate on, as they were also a judge in it. If you let me finish my clarification you wouldn't be hopping around now like idiots. He eyed them disrespectfully and continued from where he left. The third result is traps. Some of those boxes have within them either negative effects to your vehicle or yourself, as well as bombs that can straightaway explode your car to oblivion. So if you want to farm those boxes and give up on the race, do so at your own risk. The MC concluded his explanation with a warning. I am not touching those for sure. Felixs firmly made his decision. In his eyes, solutions that rely on luck never had good endings. So, it's better to race properly while ignoring those boxes that might lead to his death from a single mistake. Felixs was not the only one who decided to ignore the existence of the boxes, as the majority of the players' delighted eyes were turned off by the third result. They would rather eliminate their peers and obtain game points to buy items than rely on a mystery box. The only ones who were still slightly excited about them were the losers who never had a chance to win in the first place by depending on their driving skills or bloodline abilities. In a sense, this hidden edition was to give those losers a chance to make things difficult for the veterans when they get hunted for game points later on. But that's only if they didn't die straight away from the first box they pick up. Oh. I get it now. Felixs chuckled after realizing why the Purity Fountain drop, a gold rank reward, was in this game. It turned out, it was compensation for the veterans, who now had their game difficulty increased even further. Ultimately, the newbies weren't supposed to pose a threat to their game, however, by adding such a deadly external help, things wouldn't be the same anymore. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Marlian looked at his bracelet and said. You have 15 minutes of Q&A, begin. Immediately after, the majority of players lifted their hands in the air like students in a classroom asking for permission to head to the bathroom. Chapter 92, Asking for Partnership. Marlian pointed at a woman with short caramel hair, who had a name tag above her head. Miss Fairy, ask away please. He requested. Miss Fairy coughed to clear her dry throat and asked, I wonder if the active and inactive volcanoes will remain the same in every lap or will mix randomly. Of course they will mix in each lap. Otherwise, it will be a meaningless obstacle after everyone memories the real exit. Marlian answered calmly. Thank you, that's all I want to know. Miss Fairy nodded her head and retreated to the back of the pack. Next, you Mr. Absolute Vision, go ahead please. He pointed at a good-looking man with a white bandage, sealing his eyes tightly. One could only wonder why he chose that name while looking like that. Sir Marlian, I have only a small inquiry. He smiled gently and asked. I wonder what we need to do to obtain the game unique title or the MVP title. Immediately after asking, everyone's ears perked up a bit in interest for the upcoming response. Hee, nothing much. To obtain the unique title, you just need to emerge as the champion. He gave a harmless smile and said, without a single player reaching the finish line after you. Startled, the players gasped at the vicious requirement to obtain the game's unique title. It was already a difficult task to finish the race without dying. Don't even mention emerging as the champion and also block others. After all, who had the time to make sure that everyone was eliminated before finishing the race? Were they supposed to wait at the finish line and block anyone from entering? No one was retarded enough to risk losing a sure victory for a title. Especially when the title was only a unique title and not the MVP title. In their eyes, that's only a bonus. Their true goal should always be to win and only win. Oh? That got you chickened out already? Marlian sneered, if you can't even handle the requirement for obtaining the unique title, there is no need for you to know about the details of the MVP title then. The players felt a bit triggered by his belittling, but they couldn't say much to refute him. He was absolutely right. The thought of aiming for the unique title was dashed from their minds the moment they heard its extreme requirement. Yet, that title was supposed to be the easiest of the two. While the unique title only allowed the players to have a wearable tag above their heads, allowing them to brag and get some reputation within the UVR. The MVP title was a different story entirely. An MC could only give away one MVP title throughout his entire life. Why? Because it was associated with the SG Hall of Fame that allowed only the best of the best to have their names on it. For any player who received an MVP title by an MC, there was almost a certain chance that he would be recommended to have his name part of that magnificent list. Thus, the conditions to receive that title from the MC were on the border of impossibility. The MCs had to make sure that their lifelong title bestowing goes to the best player they saw. Otherwise, their recommendation letter would be rejected. Meaning, neither the player name nor their names would ever land on the Hall of Fame. After receiving his answer, Mr. Absolute Vision bowed his head slightly and backed away. Soon, another participant asked after getting permission. Sir, can you tell us what should we expect from the boxes in detail? Such as the abilities we can obtain or the negative effects. If you want to find out, just pick them up later in the race. Don't waste my time here. Marlian shrugged his question off, causing the player to mumble some curses. But, one mean look from Marlian instantly quietened him down obediently. All right, the time is up, you can have 1 hour to speak to each other and team up if you want. I don't care. But after 1 hour you will be teleported inside the track. He gave them a cold glare and warned, you better respond properly to my questions when I interview you later. Or else, you will be blacklisted from any future interviews. That's it for now. Good luck and don't create trouble in the hall. Marlian left as sudden as he arrived. The players kept sharing eye contact with each other in total awkward silence. Then, without warning, every unranked newbie got surrendered by the veterans. Felixs as well got encircled by 4 players, looking at him like a piece of cheap flesh. Mr. Landlord, how about a partnership between me and you? I promise that our alliance will take us to the finish line. A man with spider tattoos and piercings all of his face gave Felixs a good-natured smile, as he promised him. Yet, his smile only made Felixs curl his lips in disgust after seeing that his teeth were black and pierced as well. Before Felixs could shoo him away from his sight and disgusting him any further, a tiger-clawed man did it for him by asking in ridicule, then what? Are you going to eliminate him? He eyed Felixs with a polite smile on his face. I swear on my mother, that if we reached the finish line together, we will compete with a final sprint to decide the champion. He asked with a sincere look, doesn't that sound much better? Scram to the side, compete fairly? Do you think Mr. Landlord has shit for a brain to believe in your lies? A merciless scold came out of a gorgeous busta lady, who suddenly appeared from behind Felixs. Felixs turned his head and saw her smiling alluringly while hugging his forearm with one hand, pressuring it against her busted chest. She blinked her eyes seductively towards Felix's face, which had a slight grin on it. Handsome, how about you pick me? She asked. I won't bullshit you that I will allow you to win, but I can promise you an unforgettable night, whether I won or not. She whispered the last part in his ears. However, Felixs only stared speechlessly at this woman, who said she wouldn't bullshit him but still called him handsome without even seeing his face. Wasn't that peak bullshit? Felixs did not wait until they start arguing about him. He already let this farce play long enough and it was time to send those exploiters vultures away. Anyone who goes up the podium and flashes his gentiles to everyone, will get my partnership. He showed them a playful smile and said, that's my only condition. Are you asterisk-ing with us? The tiger-clawed man asked with narrowed eyes. After realizing that he was not gullible to join them, the gorgeous lady furiously removed Felix's hand, which was taking advantage of her chest by groping it silently. He wouldn't be Felixs if he didn't take advantage of such a freebie. Indeed, I am messing with you. Now if you don't scram from my sight at this instant, I will f.u.c.k with you for real during the game. Felix's playful smile instantly changed to a cold one as he threatened them frigidly. Hee, I hope they put me next to you during the race. So we can continue our conversation. The tiger-clawed man gave Felixs an unfriendly glare while walking away. See you in the race as well, handsome. He was followed by the busta lady after blowing a kiss at Felixs with a vicious glint in her eyes. The others left their own remarks and threats and went hunting for other prey to take advantage of. No one wanted a real alliance or partnership, as everyone was betrayed at some point by his partner, Felixs included. This was called individual games for a reason. After all, no matter how many alliance or partnership a player makes. In the end, only one champion was allowed in each game. Tiger Claw, Mystifying Beauty, Wobbly Web, and Guard of Logic. Targets have been chosen. Felixs read their tagged names while grinning deviously. While others target gullible newbies to take advantage of, Felixs on the other hand target the ones he was about to eliminate. Wasn't better to focus on racing while the prey delivers themselves to him without effort? He just needed to insult them a little and their inflated ego would deal with the rest. He knew that veterans always had that look of pride and superiority when dealing with newbies. Thus, they wouldn't handle being insulted by Felixs who never played a single game in his life. Too bad for them, Felixs played games more they could even imagine. Felixs scanned everyone's name tags and soon found the player he scouted 4 days before, Easy_Wind. It seems that he is planning to ride solo as well. He eyed a man wearing a white leather jacket with dark sunglasses on, sitting in the hall corner all by himself. Felixs rubbed his chin lightly while pondering about an important detail he missed. I should probably buy sunglasses as well. Immediately after, he opened the VR shop under everyone's eyes and bought brown sunglasses. Then, he wore them under his hoodie. Sadly, the darkness was also hiding them. A moment later, the entire hall was filled with VR shops and players buying ones as well. Somehow, everyone forgot that they would be racing under 3 suns. Chapter 93, Interviewing the Players. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you coping up with this heat? Marlian asked through his microphone. He was sitting, at a commentary table mid-air above millions of spectators, who were seated with shallow or no clothes at all under the shade of a humongous umbrella. The umbrella was blocking the scorching sunlight from reaching them, as well as lowering the heat to the bare minimum. Unfortunately, Felixs and the players, who were each standing near their hover cars, did not enjoy the same treatment. as the only protection they had, were the sunglasses they bought earlier. Thank God for that. I ain't even feeling it. On my planet, this heat was called absolute zero. When you are going to brag, at least make some sense, you f***ing retard. The spectators yelled their responses with red faces and sweaty foreheads, creating a symphony of unrecognizable noises. This was Marlian's true aim, to hear as much noise as possible. It didn't matter what they say, as long as the atmosphere was hyped, it meant he was doing his job well. Now let's begin interviewing our dear players. It seems like some of them are not handling the heat well. He laughed in a mocking manner while pointing his microphone at some players, who were crouching next to their cars, trying to take cover from the suns. Ha 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 ha. What p****s? Can't even handle such a breeze. The crowd laughed out loud with him after seeing this sight. But the players did not feel ashamed at all, as they remained in the same position. F***ing bastards laughing because they are hiding under an umbrella, I dare them to stay 5 seconds in this weather. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click number_47498409573148821 for visiting. F***ck. I feel my skin is melting. Is it too late to give up racing? Those players either did not practice like Felixs in the training center or did not manage to secure a room for themselves, thus having to deal with this 59 degrees Celsius weather for the first time. Felixs was also not doing well under the heat since his outfit was truly messing him up badly. But he could only endure it until the 30 minutes of interviews end, so he could enjoy the coolness of his car. Whoosh! Marlian didn't dilly-dally anymore and nosedived speedily until he smashed into the ground. He then began the interview segment with the prettiest girl in the players. He pointed his microphone near her face and asked her with his left side mouth smiling, "Madam Pluto, can you share with us your reason for participation?" She did a peace sign to the streaming camera at her right and said cutely, "It's of course because of the loyal fans that supported me in every game, whether I won or lost." She then blew a kiss to the camera and drew a heart in the air. "Give me a f***ing break already. We are dying from the heat here and you are making it even worse by your cringy idol performance." Irritated, Felixs banged his head with the car roof as he murmured, "We love you Pluto. Smile at me, Pluto. Have my babies Pluto, ouch. Who the hell slapped my neck?" However, only Felixs and other players thought so. As for the male audience, they all went into a frenzy, removing their shirts and spinning them above their heads. "That's an honorable reason, Madam Pluto, I admire you for it." Marlian's strict and vicious persona from the game hall was no more, as he said with a moved expression, "Tell us, what do you wish for when you win?" "I wish for my fans to live forever to accompany me." Madam Pluto pouted, "But I know that's too much to ask. So I only want beautifying flower to appear more breathtaking. I am only doing this for my fans." She added the last part while pointing her finger at the camera in a cute manner. Felixs almost vomited on the hood of his car after hearing her twist the wish to make it seem like she was doing it for her fans. "Should I eliminate her first for ruining my mood?" Felixs pondered seriously while looking at the short curly-haired girl that appeared just like a doll. "Never mind, others will take care of her." He switched to other players and saw that the majority were already about to lose their shit under this heat plus this constant torture by Pluto. Marlian did not linger anymore next to her after hearing a positive response from the audience. He walked between the different shapes of cars and types to search for a unique player that would hype the game even more. Soon, he saw Felixs with his hoodie on, banging his head lightly on the car's roof like a retard. It seemed like his heavy outfit under this heat started to affect his mentality. Marlian's eyes brightened a bit and rushed towards Felixs, but suddenly, he stopped after seeing a tag above Felix's head that says "No interviews." Tisk, thinking yourself as a hotshot? Moron, later you will beg to be interviewed by us. Marlian didn't bother with Felixs anymore after seeing that tag. He merely scoffed and left to interview other players. Before long, the interview segment finished and the players were requested to enter their cars in order to prepare for the start. Yet, before they turned their engines on, some cars got their heavy modifications instantly removed, turning a giant beast into a N.A.K.E.D rat. Felixs snickered at those morons, who already lost the race before it even began. How were they going to race, when their defensive and offensive parts were removed randomly? Some cars even had their entire launchers removed, leaving the owners no tears to shed. Still, they turned on their engines with watery eyes and prayed to survive the game with their lackl.u.s. term modification. The audience cheered passionately after seeing the 46 cars lift up slowly until they reached 70 meters in height. Then, hovered in their places without moving an inch. Felix's luck was quite bad as he got placed right in the middle of the pack. This would hinder him greatly when he tries to break off and fly solo. Not to mention, 2 of his targets were placed quite near him. This would make it even worse after they focus their attacks on him during the upcoming chaos. Let's see, if you are going keep your C.O.C.Ky attitude after I destroy you. Tiger Claw licked his lips as he gazed at Felix's vehicle that was in front of him. Marlian, after seeing that everyone was in their position, began the countdown while asking the audience to count with him. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. GOOO. The spectators threw their fists in the air while cheering thunderously for the players, who bolted as fast as possible above the red desert. Boom! Yet, before they even reached 500 meters, an adorable pink car with bunny ears got instantly devoured by multiple bloodline abilities, turning it into metal junk mixed with some blood and flesh raining from above. Sadly, Madame Pluto got eliminated first. Rest in peace. Saddened, Marlian sighed as he informed the dumbstruck male audience. No. Not my girl. How could she die? We didn't even make babies yet. Ouch. Who the F***ck keeps slapping my neck? I will butcher you. It was about time to change my idol anyway. Madame Pluto's fans, some did not receive the news well, while the majority switched to another beautiful female in the players and began cheering for her like nothing ever happened. Loyal fans? That was merely wishful thinking in the Supremacy games. Chapter 94, First Eliminations. That's what you get when you do your act at the wrong time and wrong place. Felixs snickered, glancing at the destroyed car of Pluto from his back mirror. After all, if it was in different weather or another game, no one would have bothered with her. But to actually keep annoying them even when they were being fried alive under the scorching suns. She truly was asking for it. She should have acted modestly like other idols in the game with them and no one would have dealt with her that heavily. Bam! Felix's car shook slightly after a bolt of lightning smashed its roof from above. It's time to focus on my condition and stop bothering with dead people. Felixs immediately focused on maneuvering sideways the following lightning bolts, that kept showering everyone in 10 meters radius. Haha, eat my bolts, you C.O.C.Ky bastard! Tiger Claw shouted, grinning. He had his upper body outside the driver window with his hands raised high above, calling for lightning bolts to strike down on Felix's vehicle. Felixs glanced at his pursuer with a mocking smile. He snapped his finger and a white mist covered his entire car, making it resemble a speeding cloud, that kept leaving a long trail of poison smoke behind it. What the hell is Thigh? Before Tiger Claw could even figure out what he was hit with, his eyelids dropped slowly until they were closed for good. Then, he lost his balance and fell from his vehicle into the crimson desert. Thud. If his entire upper body was not outside the car, he would have only slept for 5 seconds then wake up. But sadly, he wanted to act dashing and summon the lightning bolts with animation, where he could have done it with a finger snap or just a thought. The other players immediately dodged Felix's long white mist after seeing the fate of Tiger Claw. They did not dare remain behind him anymore. Was that poison? If I recalled properly, only sleepiness aura has such an effect. Guard of logic, who was on the right side of Felixs during the start of the race, wondered out loud. Soon, he turned his wheel left, trying to put some distance from Felixs. He lost his motivation to attack anymore. Find authorized novels in faster updates, better experience. Please click number _475014120237199909 for visiting. If Tiger Claw didn't get eliminated so fast, they would have allied together to target Felixs. Yet, the F***er lost before he even dealt any damage to Felix's car. Could one get any more unreliable? Trying to retreat after provoking me, Felixs said with a smirk while rolling down his left window. Then, he created one light yellow bomb and held it in his hand. If Guard of Logic saw what Felixs was doing, he would have raised his window to shield himself. Too bad, the white mist was blocking everyone's vision, including his. Poof! And so, he was smacked in the face unexpectedly with one yellowish bomb that was thrown by Felixs using his super strength passive. It was so fast, Guard of Logic didn't even know what he was hit with before absorbing the paralyze inducement through his nose. Scared out of his wits by the sudden assault, he wanted to press the acceleration button on his dashboard to speed away from Felixs. Yet, his hand was frozen on the wheel, unresponsive to his wishes and orders. It was clutching the wheel so tightly, green veins were protruding from it. What's happening to me? Why can't I move my body? He screamed in his mind, utterly frightened. The poor thing couldn't even express himself out loud, as the paralyze inducement affected everything. Even his mouth. The only thing that was unaffected was his mentality and thought process. He soon realized that there was nothing to afraid of, as he could still activate his abilities. After all, they only needed a thought. Nothing more, nothing less. Unfortunately, his realization was quite late by a second. Bye-bye. Felixs didn't waste his inducement duration as he threw two more acid green bombs at Guard of Logic's open window. Poof! Poof! Wide-eyed, not able to even close them off, Guard of Logic face was smacked by one bomb while the other hit his car's dashboard. Aruyug! Immediately after the mist made contact with his skin, it started to corrode rapidly like he was thrown into a pool filled with acid. Sadly, he could only wince in pain without the right to even scream his anguish away. His face skin, clothes that he wore, and even the car interior, were being melted. Tsh! Tisk! Electric sparks started to break here and there inside the car. After its dashboard, the main controlling unit was fried by the acidic mist. All of this happened in the span of 2 seconds while he was still paralyzed. However, the 5 seconds duration of the inducement finally ended, freeing his body from its effects. F***ck Yoguolans ruled. The first thing that came out of his lips was an unrecognizable curse. It turned out that the acid reached even his vocal cords and ruined them as well. Whoosh! As expected, his car nosedived into the desert after having its controls completely frayed. Yet, Guard of Logic wasn't even paying attention to so. His bloodshed ruined eyes were focused only on one target. That was Felix's car as it sped away, chasing after the rest of the pack. Boom! A huge orange mushroom cloud rose behind Felix's car. Till his death, Guard of Logic didn't manage to activate a single ability. What a beautiful play by Mr. Landlord, managing to eliminate 2 players at once. Thrilled, Marlian praised Felixs with his right cheek mouth. It seemed like the left cheek mouth was for conversations while the right one was for commentary. Without getting asked to do his job, he immediately showcased the highlight of Felix's outplay on the large screen to those who were paying attention to other players. So clean. He wasn't even pressured by them. Holy shit, how can he use 2 different types of poison in one ability? I believe that's the doing of legendary bloodline. After all, there is a wide chasm between epic rank beasts and legendary ones. True, that could only be it. He must either have a huge background or lucky as hell to win it in the lottery. PFFFFFF. Lottery, I can't believe people still actually trust in those scammers. Why are you laughing, moron? Since he is hiding his identity while having a legendary bloodline, it only means he chanced upon it. I second that, what a lucky bastard. Every part of the stadium had different conversations by the audience after seeing that magnificent display of merely two abilities combined, to easily get rid of two players. After the play finished rolling, Marlian replaced it with another one. This one was displaying three players getting instantly eliminated by Mr. Absolute Vision. Astonished, the spectators watched three players' cars crash into each other due to losing their eyesight for more than 30 seconds. If they weren't grouped inside a huge pack, getting blinded or not, it wouldn't matter much, since the car was stable enough to fly in a straight line. Too bad, Mr. Absolute Vision took advantage of the chaos that was happening currently to easily egg himself some free game points. No wonder he chose that name. Who would dare see in his presence? Only his vision is absolute. Marlian commentated passionately on the highlight. Meanwhile, Felixs kept accelerating through the pack, dodging abilities and counter-attacking whenever an opportunity presented itself. But the majority of his attacks did not end well, since he already turned off the aura that was concealing him. It was consuming his energy each second. He would be a fool to keep it active for that long. This led to his bombs getting spotted beforehand and dodged successfully. Hell, can't you leave me alone and focus on another one? Felixs was quite vexed by their multiple attempts to break him down each time he passed someone. Well, he only had himself to blame since the majority of the players were driving in twos or threes, protecting each other and attacking anyone who surpassed them. Felixs, who kept accelerating passing one by one solo, was provoking them continuously. Thus, it was only a natural outcome that he gets focused on by the majority of the alliances. Anyone who wanted to leave the pack unscratched must survive their salvo first. Let's see how my new unlocked ability fares against this slippery worm. Wobbly Web, the man with spider tattoos on his face from before, kept smiling like a devil with his black teeth. His devilish smile was understandable, as his eyes were currently on Felix's car, that was ahead of him, maneuvering up and down the rain of abilities thrown at it. Shortly after, two thin tubes came out from his car headlamp positions. One at the right, the other at the left. Phew, phew. Two long silky strings were launched from them, targeting Felix's car. Even though it was constantly on the move, it still got latched by those webs from behind. Hehe, my webs can be controlled remotely by my mind, how can I miss you? Wobbly Web smirked and activated his newly obtained ability. Spiderling's army, go show him what true poison is. He ordered a bunch of small red spiders, that were being constantly created from his hand, then dropped on the silky web. After latching on it, they started to crawl rapidly towards the end of the string, that was connected to the back window of Felix's car. Hehe, you should have accepted my partnership willingly without insulting me. Eager and somewhat crazed, Wobbly Web said while running his tongue on his pierced teeth. He probably thought that he looked dashing while doing so. But honestly, if the camera was on him now, the majority of the spectators would have vomited in disgust. After a couple of seconds, all of those red spiderlings made it safely to the other side. They had the size of a toe, thus it wasn't really hard for them to get access to the interior of Felix's car. Just his open windows were more than enough. Wobbly Web waited until all of them got into their position before ordering out loud, "My babies! Poison him to death!" Chapter 95, Conserving Energy. Oh, what do we have here? It seems like Landlord is in a pinch. Marlian instantly noticed Wobbly Web's ambush and switched the camera focus from those at the lead to them. Creeped out, the crowd drew a deep breath at the sight of thousands of small red spiderlings crawling all over Felix's car and entering inside from every hole and opening they found. He is doomed. What kind of F***ed up ability is that? Who can defend against such an army while driving? Sigh, that legendary bloodline is truly wasted on him. That's the peak ability of Queen Harvest Spider. That's an epic rank tier 1 bloodline. Hehe, I guess his luck has been totally consumed when he won that bloodline. Suddenly, their chatter quietened down a bit as they watched mouth agape, the spiderlings they were just glorifying gets engulfed in an acid green mist. Then, magically disappear after the mist was removed. Felix's car kept accelerating forward as nothing happened. Marlian, the spectators, and more so Wobbly Web stared at Felix's sparkling clean car with a dumbfounded expressions. Are my eyes playing a trick on me? Or did I just watch an epic rank peak ability get dealt with the same way as spraying gas at flies? Brother, you are missing the point here. His aura switched to another poison like his bombs. Can he do that with all of his abilities? The spectator then added with a slight tremble on his voice, and how many poisons can he switch to? Everyone near the man felt a shiver in their skin as they imagined the immense possibilities of this overpowered bloodline. That's it, I am focusing only on Landlord from now on. Let's see how many poison inducements he can use. I am with you. Count me as well. Tisk, I bet he would use at max 5 inducement like the known legendary bloodlines. Just like a domino effect, the crowd bit by bit began switching their vision from known veterans to Felixs after realizing how unique his bloodline was. Some spectators knew of such an ability to switch inducements since a few legendary poison bloodlines had it as well. However, the maximum number of inducements they could use never went beyond 5. They knew that Felix's bloodline would be just the same as them, nothing to boast about. Yet, they still switched their focus from the lead to him. They were somewhat curious about what 5 inducements he unlocked. Ha 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 ha. Meanwhile, Felixs was laughing his ass out inside the car while watching a small cute spider on top of his hand. It was biting him viciously, trying to penetrate his skin and spew poison inside. Yet, Felix's defenses were too strong for its little fangs. Trying to poison this daddy? Aren't you simply asked to be slapped in the face? Felixs chuckled one last time and smacked the spider away like a fly. He glanced at Wobbly's car that was speeding away from him in retreat and sneered, "You lucky this was a race format." Felixs ignored him and continued his acceleration to catch up. If this was a different game mode, Felixs wouldn't hesitate for even a second before hunting him down in retaliation. However, this was sadly a race. And in a race, he should only have one thing in mind, and that was to reach the finish line first and foremost. Hence, he couldn't waste any more time dealing with those pests, as his rank was currently 15 from 34 players that were left. A whopping 12 players were eliminated in the very first minutes of the race. This just showed how dangerous was to remain within the pack. Good thing, the players now somewhat spread out in the wide desert. There wasn't really a track to limit their flying space or such. One could literally go wherever he wanted. However, to reach the second area of the track, then third, and the fourth, one must always fly in a straight line and minimize any type of delay. This meant those players who spread out, going either left or right, chickened out after seeing players get eliminated constantly. Felixs and the rest of the players, who kept on flying in a straight line, weren't really complaining about it. Oh, mystery box. After flying for a while solo, Felix's eyes caught the tail of 3 cars ahead of him. They were rushing towards a quite large blue box, that had a question mark on it while revolving slowly on itself. They were trying to be the first to obtain it or hinder their competitors from doing so. Just because the veterans decided not to rely on those boxes, it didn't mean they would let those losers get hold of them. After all, who knows if they managed to get an ability that could turn things around. It seems the silver car is going to it. Felixs observed from distance and slowed his speed a bit to not catch up to them. 3 players fighting was already a crowd. No need to add himself to the mix. Boom! Scared shitless, Felixs instantly closed his eyes and changed his direction reflexively after he saw a massive explosion originating from the blue box. Marlian was definitely not bullshitting us. Felixs thought with cold sweat in his back. He didn't think that the bombs inside the boxes were strong enough to destroy everyone in the vicinity. Heck, if he didn't slow down, the force would have definitely cracked his front window. This scene just further reinforced his decision of not touching those mystery boxes. More like mystery scams, he murmured while dodging some alloy scrubs raining from above. The only ones who enjoyed the fireworks were Marlian, who was hyping it even further, and the spectators who paid to see exactly those brutal deaths. After 10 minutes of continuous flying, Felixs finally saw the Great Canyon that had thin cracks in it. Those were actually the narrow paths they were supposed to pass through to reach the underground tunnels. Felixs pushed the acceleration pedal harder and wheezed towards one of them. Hopefully, this one is in a straight line, he wished quietly while entering the crack. Unfortunately, the path turned into a crooked one with multiple turns and narrow chalks that could be entered only by flying horizontally. The path couldn't get any more messed up. F***ck me. Irked and irritated, Felixs began slowing down his speed in order to weave his way in those steep turns. Each time he reached one, he would drift through them successfully. Good thing his driving skills were not too shabby, letting him have a smooth journey even inside this crooked path. Phew, phew, phew. Out of nowhere, 3 wind blades approached Felix's car from behind rapidly. Their loud sound was enough to let Felixs know that he was being attacked. Smooth my ass, talk about jinxing it. Just good, more trouble. Without even glancing at the back mirror, Felixs moved sideways, managing to dodge only one blade. He noticed them quite late to maneuver all of them. Slice, slice. The back of his car got cut up, but only slightly, leaving shallow marks behind. The car's defensive counterparts Felixs used, could take a beating of this degree. Tisk, no wonder this bastard didn't modify his offense too much. Inside a thin silver car, that had blue clouds paintings on it, a pale handsome man with long diamond-like earrings clicked his tongue in criticism. His name tag was Wind Cloud. Whatever, no matter how hard his car defenses are, it won't survive my wind blades forever, he said, grinning. He kept summoning long wind blades from his hand and placing them above a wide curvy platform, that was under his seat. That platform was connected to his car's frontal bumper. Honestly, it shouldn't be called as such, since it appeared more like a curvy opened mouth. Felixs had 2 medium-sized launchers, while this dude had a launcher stretching from left to right. Each player modified his car to fit their bloodline's abilities perfectly. Immediately after placing 3 blades stacking on each other, he clicked a button and they got projected swiftly from the opening towards Felix's car, that was drifting stylishly. However, this time none of them managed to land on Felix's car, as it suddenly plunged down rapidly like it was pulled down by gravity. Works every time. Felixs chuckled and turned the engine back on after his successful maneuver. What the F***ck? That's illegal. Furious and somewhat shocked, Wind Cloud slapped his car wheel after seeing Felix's unique way of dodging. However, only he thought so. As for the crowd who were focusing their vision on Felixs, they cheered and clapped their hands thunderously. They might have only focused on him due to his unique bloodline, but after spectating his driving skills, they were hooked by him. Awed and thrilled, they chanted his name while watching him dodge every wind blade thrown at him by either his drifts or spins. Nothing touched his car after the first blade. Felixs kept on driving without making a single counterattack. He saw that the bastard had his car's windows closed, so the poison wouldn't affect him at all. If he wanted to use his sleepiness aura as a blinding technique, it would consume quite a lot of energy. His energy tank only had 70% left after his previous battles. So he needed to minimize his consumption as the race still had 2 more laps. Plus, each hovercar had an automatic navigation system. Thus, even if he used his aura and blinded him, he could just activate automatic driving and he wouldn't have anything to worry about. Still, his speed would be reduced drastically. Felixs didn't want him to leave his sight after attacking his car to such a degree. He wanted to kill the bastard right now and right here. Shortly after, the path they were driving through, became straight and leading downward gradually. Oh, it seems, I am about to reach the tunnels. Felixs smirked, I might get rid of this pest in there. He accelerated downward at his top speed. The path was straight now. There was no need to worry about steep curves anymore. Soon, he was followed by the sliver car, sticking to him like glue whenever he went. Felixs glanced at the back mirror and saw that no more blades were coming at him. Out of gas already. He sneered at this moron who wasted all of his energy for what? A mere 200 game point if he eliminated him? He was obviously either an eager newbie or a trash veteran, who still did not understand the concept of pacing his energy based on the game. Felixs had 70% left and was still acting stingy with it. Simply because he had no idea what was going to happen in the rest of the race. Instead of using his abilities recklessly, he would rather first use his brain and find the easiest and cheapest way possible to finish a task. Elemental energy in the games was a finite source that couldn't be replanted in the majority of the games. After a while of driving downward in this kind of stalemate, the tunnels leading to the underground appeared in Felix's eyesight. Felix's eyes brightened up immediately after seeing the tunnel's entrance that only allowed one vehicle to pass through with some difficulty. It was more like a choke than an entrance. Time to get rid of him. He grinned while creating 2 white bombs in his hand. Then, he put them each in a tube that was connected to his back roll launchers. He left them inside the tubes and pushed the acceleration pedal to the limit, bolting inside the choke first. Wind Cloud, who was planning on slowing down his speed to pass the choke safely, decided to do the exact opposite after seeing Felix's car put a significant distance between them. Better luck in your next life. Felixs laughed wickedly and punched the launch button with the side of his fist. Whoosh, poof, poof. The white bombs got launched swiftly towards the choke. One exploded exactly on the choke, while the other exploded 4 meters before it. The spectators stood from their seats in excitement at the choke that was completely blocked of sight by clouds of white mist. Even they couldn't see its exact position, don't even mention Wind Cloud, who was speeding towards it. No. Mortified, Wind Cloud screamed at the top of his lung while pulling the wheel to himself, hoping to slow down his speed for even a bit. Sadly, his car still entered the white cloud, blocking his vision from the choke's exact location. Everyone knew, even himself, that his fate was decided the moment his vision was blocked. Entering the choke while seeing it in plain sight was already a difficult task. Don't even mention doing it completely blind. Boom! The silver car completely missed the choke and collided with the wall to its right. Felixs drove forward with a relieved smile after hearing the anticipated sound of the explosion. Another 200 GP was in the bag. Chapter 96, Destroying an Alliance. Landlord did it again. Only 2 bombs to get rid of a player. This newbie keeps making a joke out of veterans. Is anyone going to stop him? Marlian automatically put the highlight on the large screen while shouting at the top of his voice. The spectators were cheering before he even commentated, as they were watching Felixs live humiliate his pursuer with 1 bomb. Questions began to arise in the VIP rooms within the stadium, whether he was even a newbie. The VIP spectators were more knowledgeable than commoners. Thus, they could see what the commoners couldn't. At this instant, the way Felixs was playing was showing an experience that could only be obtained after playing a hefty sum of games. Knowing how to pace and conserve energy, not chasing after eliminations, not making rash decisions. The list goes on and on. All of those details were not supposed to be on an unranked player. Unranked players were supposed to be dumb, scared, nervous, and have no idea what the F***ck they were doing. After all, they were participating in Supremacy games for the very first time. It was common sense that the first game and even the second were always the hardest. More than 99% of unranked newbies lost their first games. It was bound to happen to the best of the bloodliners. Even the current top-ranked players lost their first games due to the lack of experience. Yet, Felixs, a supposed newbie was literally making the veterans in the game appear like they were the newbies. This sight baffled the VIP spectators, making them switch their focus to him, planning to watch him during the entire game. Above the normal seating, in one of the VIP rooms. Such a clear contrast, Wind Cloud used a total of 31 wind blades yet still didn't even damage his car. Said an elderly woman with long grey hair to another elder that was sitting beside her. Indeed, meanwhile landlord relied only on the exterior environment to his advantage to save energy. The other elder rubbed his golden beard slightly and added with a smile, "It's clear that he is confident of his chances in emerging as the champion. How about we invite him to the clan?" She asked suddenly. Well, he is a poison user and even with a legendary bloodline. He pondered while looking at Felix's car sidestepping the lava bursts from the river. Soon, he nodded his head and decided. All right, if he managed to win the race, we will extend an invitation to join as an outer member of the clan. Well, I do believe he deserves to be an inner member. The elderly woman gave a mild smile and added, but the clan sent you to scout for talents, not me. So it's your choice. We will see that later. For now, let's observe how he deals with those he caught up to. He said, smiling. Felixs slowed his speed slightly, trying to keep his distance away from 3 hovercars in front of him. They were driving near each other in a triangle formation without fighting. Tisk, 3-member alliance, exactly what I needed. Felixs rubbed his eyebrows in irritation. He was having a tough time finding a way to deal with them perfectly without wasting his energy or taking too much damage. Especially without getting delayed any further. He didn't want to entangle himself in the fight. It was not worth it. A couple of minutes quickly passed by, and Felixs merely kept observing the surroundings and the players ahead of him for any loophole to take advantage of. Suddenly, the leftmost car had its window pulled down just slightly. Smoke was coming from that opening. The player was definitely smoking a cigarette. It wasn't against the rules or anything. Felixs was glad that it wasn't. His eyes glowed with delight as he finally saw the opportunity he needed. If I used that inducement, I won't need to do anything. With an evil wide grin, Felixs snapped his finger and a bloodish red bomb was created on top of his hand. Then, he put it at a tube connected to his front launchers and waited patiently. Fush! A sudden lava pillar rose from the river near the alliance formation, forcing them to split apart in panic. Now! Felixs immediately pressed the launch button while aiming at the car with its window lowered. Whoosh! The bomb rapidly headed towards it unnoticed by anyone due to the lava pillar and its red color. It camouflaged itself neatly with the atmosphere's bright red light. Poof! Strike! Ecstatic, Felixs celebrated with a fist pump after seeing his bomb explode near the window of the car. Although the majority of the mist was left outside of the car, still a small part made it in. Felixs didn't care if 1% or 99% of mist got in. As long as the player inside the car took a whiff, he would be poisoned without resistance. Showtime! He rubbed his hands together while eyeing the assaulted car in anticipation. He even slowed down his speed to further to avoid their detection. He wanted nothing to mess up with his plan. That pillar scared me to death. Relieved, a chubby man wiped his sweaty forehead with his sleeve. After doing so, he hastily pressed his AP bracelet's screen. Ultra Craze, Warshawk, are you guys all right? He asked. I am good, Mighty Monka, I dodged successfully. A stuffy voice came from Mighty Monka's bracelet. Good, how about you, Warshawk? No one responded to him. He looked at his window and found that Warshawk's car was fine. So, he was quite confused about not receiving confirmation. You mother fasterisker. However, his confusion was soon replaced with rage after seeing 2 sides cannons suddenly pop out of Warshawk's car doors. They were pointing straight at his enraged face. He quickly tried to dodge by pulling the wheel to himself, trying to uplift his car. Unfortunately, he was too near to be missed or given enough time to pull that off. Boom! Boom! Two spiky golden cannonballs crashed into his car. One shattered his window and hit him right in the head, while the other penetrated his car door, easily landing on his chest. The distance between them was so close, the cannonball's penetration power was beyond massive. Mighty Monka sat unmoving with two spiky balls stuck on his body. His eyes were losing their L.U.S.Tur gradually. Yet, he had only one thought in his mind even when felt that his death was approaching. Why now? Exactly, why now? He knew that betraying each other was imminent. But he assumed that wouldn't happen until at least they reached the last lap. Otherwise, the entire alliance was meaningless. Too bad, he didn't know that there was a serpent stalking them all along, planning just for this moment. Wars Hawk. UF.U.C.K.I.N.G retard. Why did you have to ruin our alliance now after all the effort we had to go through to build our trust? Beyond livid, Ultra Craze roared with bloodshot eyes. Who could blame him though? Everything was going smoothly. They eliminated those who targeted them and ignored those who left them alone. The only thing they focused on was to reach the finish line first. But now everything was ruined by a single attack from Wars Hawk. There was nowhere in hell that Ultra Craze would carry his partnership with him after seeing his other allies' fate. Wait! I swear it was not me. He attacked me first, I was simply protecting myself. Wars Hawk did not even realize he was poisoned, as he frantically tried to defend himself. He wasn't lying though. He really saw that Mighty Monka was pointing at him with a finger, sizzling with electricity. He saw the same gesture before when Mighty Monka was dealing with a player. That player, who was assaulted by that electric finger, got paralyzed for 10 seconds straight before getting finished off by Ultra Crazed's behemoth car. Terrified that he was going to be dealt with in the same manner as that player, he decided to attack first. You bastard, I was planning to leave you. But you dare look down on my IQ like this. Ultra Craze immediately slammed his heavy fortified car against the squishy car of Wars Hawk. Ultimately, for him to have those kinds of massive cannons installed in his car, it only signified that he gave up on installing defensive parts. His car standard parts didn't have a chance against Ultra Crazed's behemoth car. Crash! Warshawk's car didn't survive even the first collision as it dove down towards the river lava rapidly. He was smashed from above by Ultra Crazed's car front bumper, which seemed like a flat metallic silver Hummer. FCK, FCK, F***CK. Stop! It was really not me. Scared out of his wits, Wars Hawk kept cursing out loud while pulling the wheel to himself, trying to stabilize his car from falling any lower. Whoosh! Thankfully, he managed to do so right as he reached a few meters above the lava river. Bastards, they must have allied against me without my knowledge. But why did they act now? Wars Hawk slapped the wheel in anger and confusion over the entire situation. He was just as bewildered as Mighty Monka. However, before his thoughts started to wander, his car roof was smashed by a spherical Hummer, bending it in a weird shape. Ultra Craze stood above Warshawk's car, wearing a belt that had a long chain connected to his car. He huffed through his mouth as he lifted that hammer high above his head like he was about to deliver judgment. Smash! He brought it down without a single ounce of hesitation. This is for looking down on my IQ. He shouted while lifting his hammer again. Stop! You will get us both killed. Frightened and shocked, Wars Hawk removed his seatbelt and lowered his body to the limit while still trying to lift his car upward. Only a few meters separated him and the lava river. Just one unlucky lava pillar popping out near him and his fate would be doomed. Unfortunately, each time he lifted his car a bit, another hammer smash ruined his efforts. Only you will die, moron. Ultra Craze lifted his hammer again and said in utter disgust, it was truly the worst alliance one can ask for. Now F***CK off. Please don't. Wars Hawk begged out loud, yet the hammer didn't pause its descent for even a split second. Bang! This time the hammer connected with Warshawk's head after not being able to lower himself any further. He truly got hammered to death unjustly. Why did I ally with such a noob? Irked and still livid, Ultra Craze pressed on a button in his belt and the chain rolled back, bringing him towards his car, that was on an automatic drive. SH. Confused, Ultra Craze lifted his head slightly after hearing a sizzling sound. Immediately after, his eyes gaped in horrification at the chain that was being corroded by an acid green mist. Before he could even comprehend what he was seeing, the chain snapped in half. No! He screamed while free-falling into the lava river. Plop! Plop! His hammer was the first to sink into the river, and then he followed after. Even when his body was being melted by the lava, his shrieks never stopped resounding in the area. A couple of seconds later, he quieted down forever. Till his death, he had absolutely no idea what had just happened. Nothing personal. Felixs accelerated above his sizzling bones with a nonchalant expression. Not a hint of sympathy was in his eyes after he watched Ultra Craze burn to death. After all, mercy had brought him too many betrayals and problems in his previous life. He already learned his lesson and he would be a fool to repeat the same mistakes here again. Chapter 97, Reaching the Lava Sea. Landlord! 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 Exhilarated and feverish, the spectators chanted Felix's game name with their fists raised above their heads, flushed cheeks, and above all, standing from their seats. One bomb, one whiff. That's all it took for an alliance made of 3 players to be brought down to their knees. Such an optimal use of energy and wits made them feel like they paid to watch a high silver or gold game, instead of a bronze game that was supposed to be packed with newbies and garbage players. Even though there were some silver-ranked players, they weren't really that good, since their losses must have been more than their wins to end up in this game. Now, Felixs was showing how a real peak-tier gold player acts and plays. In his previous life, he never managed to get out of gold rank, but still, that was enough to walk over those scrubs. One bomb to break down an entire alliance. He didn't even need to do anything. Marlian put a close-up on Felix's serpent-like car and said in a thrilled manner, "I bet my left mouth that the red bomb was a hallucination inducement. There's no other explanation to what just happened." Marlian's guess was pinpoint, as Felixs truly used a hallucination inducement. It was one of the few cost-free options. Anyone who absorbed the inducement would have his most recent worry and fear resurface in flesh. For Warshawk, it was the sight of his 2 allies combining their strengths to kill one player within an instant. Since the moment he saw that, worry began to eat him up from inside, that he would be their next target. Hallucination inducement just made that appear in reality. The rest was history. Felixs knew that individual alliances were fragile and filled with holes. Especially in bronze rank where newbies still didn't know that contracts were allowed within the game. That's right, players could sign an alliance contract, forbidding them from acting against each other until their purpose was achieved. Sometimes it would be until they kill their target successfully, while at other times, it would be until everyone died except for them. Whatever purpose or target was, the moment it was achieved the alliances fall apart, leaving everyone to fend for themselves solo. To sum it up, if the alliance Felixs just destroyed signed a contract with each other, this would have never happened, or at least Warshawk would have taken a couple of seconds to think of his decision until the inducement duration runs out. After all, breaking a contract meant that the Queen would destroy his consciousness, killing him straightway. Fascinating, just pure skill and wits. Delighted, the elder in the VIP room clapped his hands in praise. Told you he deserves to be within the inner circle. The elderly woman chuckled while watching Felix's outplay again on the highlighted large screen. Indeed, he is the whole package, smart, ruthless, talented. He nodded in agreement. Suddenly he let out a helpless sigh. But now other clans will fight with us for him. So we need to entice him with more than just an invitation. How about we promise him with consciousness cleanse substance? She suggested. All right, I doubt others will be able to top it even further. He agreed and added, but he still needs to win the game. That's the minimum requirement to join us. She nodded and continued to watch Felix's car that was speeding almost reach the volcano's tunnels. This is a moment of fate for this game, darling, landlord. Is he going to pick the right tunnel or chooses the wrong one? Marlian completely ignored the other players after Felix's last witty display. Now the entire audience already started focusing only on Felixs, and he must abide by their wishes and showcase his face on the large screen. With Felix's hoodie that only showed darkness, this added extra bonus points on Felix's entire persona. The majority of the crowd loved the mysterious vibe he was emitting. Plus, with his seemingly endless poison inducements, this only further enhanced that feeling. How many did he use so far? A random spectator asked. He currently used 4 unique inducements. White for sleepiness, acid green for corrosion, light yellow for paralyzes, and finally red for hallucination, I assume. The one near him answered his question while reading from a small note. I can't wait to see other ones. Sigh, truly legendary bloodlines are on their own league. No shit, epic rank tier 1 can be sold for 5 million, meanwhile legendary rank can reach even 200 million for just tier 1. And even then, you can only get them from renowned auctions houses. The spectators conversed and argued with each other out loud with varied emotions, adoration, envy, greed, and indifference. The only unarguable idea was that Felix's bloodline was legendary. The mere thought that it could be above never crossed their minds. At the end of the day, legendary rank beasts were at the peak of rarity and potential without questions asked. This had been a dead debate since long ago. This was the reason Felixs never cared or bothered about hiding his bloodline abilities. Since even if he used tens of inducements, no one would question him on it. The only thing that must be hidden, no matter what, was the number of abilities he owned. After all, if he used 6 active abilities while being in the bronze and silver, it signified only 2 things: either the system was bugged and a peak 6th stage bloodliner somehow managed to sneak inside, or Felixs had a way to awaken more abilities while being at the bottom of integration. That's what was going to create true chaos. As humans at the top of the pyramid would use everything they had in their possession to find his identity in the real world, or at least harass anyone who used the same abilities as he had. Before long, they would find him in real life and invite him for a cup of tea. Felixs tapped on his wheel with his fingers while humming a tune softly. From time to time he glanced at the ranking and the eliminated players list that was on his car's dashboard. Oh, another one eliminated at the front. A bit surprised, he exclaimed after seeing his rank bump up to 5th while the player base got lowered from 20 to 19. Let's see who the lucky one is. He clicked on the eliminated list and all the names who died were displayed in front of him. New. Mystifying beauty, how can you die before I play with you? Felixs lightly punched his wheel in vexation after seeing the busted chick he groped in the hall gets eliminated. Oh well, we were not fated. His vexation was quickly replaced with focus after finally reaching the tunnels leading to the volcanoes. Lady Luck, I never begged you for anything. But please just for once show me the way. Felixs prayed piously while driving through a tunnel he chose randomly. After a while, Felix's curses resounded in the tunnel. F***CKU. I will never beg from you again. He huffed in anger after seeing a dead end in the one he chose. Without wasting any more time, he made a sharp turn, leaving the tunnel and drifting into the second one to his right. Thankfully, the hateful lava he saw before was not there, as only a wide mouth showing crimson sky was unveiled as soon as he stepped inside the tunnel. Felixs immediately accelerated while spinning his hovercar to nullify some air resistance. He didn't like using this technique as it gave him motion sickness, and he couldn't afford to have one next to other players. A few seconds later, his car rushed out of the volcano mouth into an orange cloud. It kept going up and up until it lost its momentum. Then, it dropped rapidly towards the lave sea. Gravity was pulling it down to its rightful height, which was 100 meters above the surface. Felixs did not let this free drop go to waste, as he directed his car towards the red desert and accelerated even further while dropping. Boom! The sound barrier was broken, as Felix's car speed exceeded the speed of sound. But he remained composed even when he was nose-diving towards the raging lava sea with that kind of speed. He squinted his eyes in focus while glancing from time to time at the meterage in his car's dashboard to see his altitude. 5,400, 4,700 m, 3,988 m, 2,680 m, 1,500 m. Now! Felixs bit his lip as hard as he could while pulling the wheel to himself and simultaneously pushing the brakes to the limit. His car kept trying to uplift itself to be vertical to the sea. 500 m, 300, 220, 90 m. Phew! Felix's car glided exactly 90 meters above the lava sea and zoomed with at least triple the normal speed. Felixs let go of his bottom lip and gave a pleased smirk that sent the spectators wild after seeing such a risky maneuver that no one before attempted to do. Felixs just kept giving and giving. There wasn't a single boring moment with him, even when he was flying alone. Well, Felixs did this dangerous movement not to entertain them but to catch up to the frontrunners. And it was totally worth it, as Felixs finally saw the tail of two cars in front of him. Ha! Another partnership? He grinned, don't mind me breaking your honeymoon. Even though he said so, he did not rush into them but kept his distance and observed silently their cars, like a predator waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Chapter 98, Brutal and Vicious. It seems that both of them have everything tight shut. He drove with one hand while having the other under his chin. He frowned slightly. This is going to be a tough one. Felixs knew that this time he wouldn't be able to use his hallucination bomb to incite a battle between them. Or any poison in that case, as the windows, the only possible entries, were closed. Is that really my only way to sneak my poison in? He pondered while examining his car interior for any loophole he could use. If he found one in his car, there was a high chance other cars would have it as well. Since the majority of players focused on modifying their exterior heavily while leaving the interior standard with few tweaks here and there. He touched the holes of the launchers inside and wondered, if I took advantage of that split second where launchers open up to fire, I might be able to pull it off. Helpless, he sighed and decided to go with this risky plan. There was no other option on the table besides so. He could have just accelerated and passed them. But he would be a fool to leave this predatory position and switch to prey just to be slightly ahead. What's even worse was that he would get sandwiched by two at front and two at the back. God knows if they would ally together and get rid of him. So the only option was to eliminate those two and do so as clean as possible without entering a messy fight with them. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Please click number *47540599020116841 for visiting. After finalizing the plan one last time, Felixs accelerated towards the rightmost car, not caring anymore if they noticed him. Miss Arctic Heart, someone is catching up to us. What's the plan? A man, who had one extra ear at the back of his head, asked with a laid-back attitude. He noticed from his back mirror, Felix's car rushing towards him. Let's do our usual pincer strategy. A beautiful mature woman with glossy icy blue lips responded in a calm manner. The long one, or the short one? He asked. Let's go for the long one. She clarified, I saw him earlier spewing white poisonous from his car, leaving a long trail. We can't go behind him if he used that. All right, you take care of the back since he is coming after me. He ordered. I told you to no order me around Sonar. She refused to obey to his order. Can you please take care of the back? Sonar requested while scratching his third ear in irritation. Much better. She gave a mild smile and changed her direction to the left. She then drove away from her partner. Felixs laid his eyes on her car for a few seconds and ignored her. It seemed like she was going to make a wide encircling without getting seen by him. She wanted to strike when he least expected. But first, she needed to get out of his sight for a while. Planning to sandwich me? He snickered while creating 2 pistachio green bombs with a snap of a finger. Then, he put them on the 2 front launcher's tubes and left them there without firing. However, the same thing didn't apply for Sonar, as his back launcher, that appeared like a lion's mouth, fired a continuous stream of sound waves in the shape of a circle towards Felixs. Woohoo! F***ing hell! Felixs reflexively dodged to the right, but still, his front glass window got cracked slightly after it got touched by the corner of the sound wave. He never expected that his prey was a sound element user. Not bad, but for how long can you dodge? Sonar chuckled while having 2 silver metal tubes in front of his mouth. One tube was connected to his front launcher while the other to the back launcher. Strangely, both of them resembled a lion having its jaw wide open. Dodge this! He put his mouth on the tube connected to the back launcher and roared at the top of his voice. Roar! Multiple sound waves in the shape of a lion's jaw were projected from the launcher. Felixs, who had his finger on the fire button, immediately pushed it, firing his bombs at the back launcher. He was waiting with narrowed eyes just for that moment. Although he was focusing on it, he didn't forget to dodge the approaching lion's jaws. Poof, poof. One bomb exploded exactly near the launcher's hole while the other exploded on the back window. Sonar laughed in a mocking manner at this useless attack. But, after seeing that his assaults were also not doing well, he slapped his wheel in irritation. Whatever, I just need to hold him until Arctic Heart pincer him. Again, he put his mouth on the metal tube and took a deep breath with his mouth. He had absolutely no idea that his launcher had just been contaminated with a pistachio green mist. Or what remained of it at very least. And so, he inhaled a large whiff of the nastiest smell he had ever been exposed to in his life. Nothing came even close to what his mouth had just experienced. Immediately after tasting it and also smelling it, he recoiled away from the tube while clutching his neck tightly, holding himself from vomiting in disgust. He felt like he just ate a mixture of multiple different feces all at once. The taste just kept on assaulting his gag reflex over and over again. In the end, he couldn't handle it anymore and vomited everything out, like a water hose. Blaic. His puke was thrown all over the wheel and the frontal window of his car, blocking his vision. After seeing what he had done, he sat frozen in his place, dumbstruck about the entire situation. He had no clue how things led to this point. Yet before he could manage to regain his wits, the disgusting sight and smell of his vomit covering the interior of his car, assaulted his gag reflex again. But this time, he learned his lesson. He quickly opened the window and put his head outside, puking his guts out. You should not have done that. Felixs laughed and pressed the fire button. Poof, poof. 2 bombs exploded on Sonar's head, one light yellow and the other acid green. The usual torturous combo. It was clear he was planning for this to happen. However, he wasn't done yet, as he threw with his hand another acid bomb on the car's dashboard. It wasn't hard for Felixs to catch up while flying with triple Sonar's car speed. Arg! My face is melting. Sonar didn't even bother about the interior of his car that was getting corroded, as he kept screaming his anguish in his mind. At least his harrowing experience was being shared with his car, as it kept making noises and warning sounds each time an important part was fried. SSSSSS. Marlian and the audience all drew a deep breath after seeing this horrendous sight. Just the idea of having your face getting melted while being paralyzed sent cold shivers in their back. Before, they only saw Guard of Logic's fate in a replay on the large screen. But now, they were watching everything live close to their faces. Especially the spectators who bought the omnipotent vision. They could see everything spot on, no matter how far the distance. Thus, Sonar's hideous face akin to walking outside of a horror movie, was literally only half a meter away from them. Landlord ways of eliminating are truly ruthless and brutal. But that's what we like to see. Marlian commentated with vicious smiles planted on his cheeks. His claim was supported by the spectators who cheered and chanted landlord's name thunderously. This was what they paid to see, bloody and brutal fights. Not drama between players, and Felixs fits exactly their favorite type of player. Was the first bombs he used were new ones? Both of them were green like his acid bomb. A spectator asked. Are you color blind? They are clearly light green. Not to mention its different inducement. Yet, what the hell was that? Can smelly bombs even count as poison anymore? Anything that can affect the body in a harmful way when absorbed can be called poison. So yes, that smelly bomb is also poison, since it harms the body functions greatly, as you have seen. A blue goblin, wearing a black tuxedo, explained in a polite manner. Damn, I bet my fart is poisonous then. Don't flatter yourself. The blue goblin smiled and said, if it can't get a negative reaction from the brain. Tshchchhh. Fart noises. OF*ck. What did you eat? Blarub. Blafh. Vomit noises. Run. Save yourselves. My eyes are tearing up from the smell. Run. His fart is a tear gas. Stop pushing me. I am gonna fall. The blue goblin kept trying to wiggle himself out from the crowd with a constipated expression on his face. His height didn't reach even their thighs, thus he was getting kneed in the face constantly by the escaping crowd. No one cared about him, as their brain had only one thought, and that was to run as far as possible from a man, who had an innocent look on his face and a tail attached to his back, resembling skunk tail. The F***er was using a skunk bloodline and still dared to fart in the middle of the crowd. Thud. Finally, not able to handle getting kneed in the face by the escaping mob, the blue goblin fell right into one of the pools of vomit released in the area. Just as he tried to lift his head, he was stamped upon, making his face get planted in the vomit right back. This time some pieces got inside his mouth. Still taste better than my ex-wife cooking. He murmured to himself subconsciously as tasted them. Still, his watery eyes couldn't hide the fact that he felt wronged about the entire situation. If he knew that his explanation was going to lead to this result, he would have kept his mouth shut. Alas, he could only wipe the vomit from his aggrieved face and go look for another seat away from that humanoid catastrophe. This mini chaos that had just happened was gone unnoticed by Marlian and the rest of the spectators, as their focus was completely drawn to a battle happening way behind Felix's car. Meanwhile, Felixs did not speed away after dealing with sonar, but slowed his speed and waited for Arctic Heart to catch up. However, it never happened. Speechless, he kept glancing at his back mirror from time to time, not knowing how to react to her tardiness. Did she lose her direction or what? He mused. After seeing that no one was chasing him even after waiting for a while, he stopped caring about her and decided to check on the current rank. What the F***ck? Immediately after seeing his current rank, he exclaimed in disbelief. Chapter 99, Catching Up to First Rank. How did I jump straight from 5th to 2 ND? He tapped on the elimination list and read the newly eliminated players. Soon he found 4 added players to the list: Sonar, Arctic Heart, Holy Fist, and Easy Wind. Did Arctic Heart get intercepted by others? He wondered in befuddlement while glancing at his back mirror. Need to speed up, it seems like they are catching up. Without further ado, he pushed the pedal to the limit and rushed forward. He never expected that other players were already this near to his position. Well, to be fair, he was hindered on many occasions on his path. Such as the fact he chose the wrong volcano's tunnel. Plus, he slowed his speed greatly during the time he was dealing with that alliance. It was only natural that players would start to catch up to him, just like he caught up to frontrunners. But still, after Sonar and Arctic Heart death, I should be 3rd rank. He glanced at Easy Wind and Holy Fist and reasoned, it seems a fight happened between the 1st and 2 ND. He grinned, I bet Easy Wind was the one who died ahead of me. He figured so from the way Easywind didn't partner with anyone in the game hall. So he must have fought and lost his battle. Hopefully, he did some substantial damage to the first ranker. 2 hours into the race. Wobbly Web is done for. He really should not have provoked an alliance. Marlian commentated on Wobbly Web's car that was being pounded by different abilities in the middle of 4 cars. Even in such a hopeless situation, Wobbly Web was trying his best to free himself from their encirclement. However, his silk element abilities were not helping him that much. Every time he threw his webs connecting to a car, they get immediately either sliced by wind or engulfed in flames. The players were playing like a solid team, using their abilities to help each other out. Their cooperation was making Wobbly Web's life hell and car into almost resembling a pile of junk. Bam! Boom! In the end, his car exploded once and for all after its engine got blasted by 3 spears made of flames. Sigh, he could have played it smarter. But he was too anxious to pass them. A spectator shook his head at this sight. Can you blame him? This is the last lap already, if not now then when? That's not an excuse to throw your life like that. He could have obtained a mystery box first then attack them, or simply don't do it and give up on the race. F.U.C.K.I.N.G moron, even landlord is struggling to catch up to first ranker, don't even mention him. True, I am watching him right now. He is still quite distant from absolute vision. If he kept at this pace, he is doomed. The audience switched their vision to Felixs, wanting to recheck on him. Since the moment he began flying solo without a single soul in front of him or behind him, everyone lost interest and focused on other battles happening at the back. The current 4 players alliance that just eliminated Wobbly Web were their favorites to watch. At least 7 players were killed by them only. Meanwhile, Felixs began to feel a little bit anxious after not seeing the tail of first ranker even after driving for a couple of hours. Where did this F***er go? This is the last lap and I still didn't even glimpse at his shadow. Felixs clutched the wheel tightly while driving recklessly through the underground. He almost got hit a couple of times by some lava pillars with the way he was driving. But he didn't slow down even a bit, as he couldn't afford to anymore. After a while, he reached the tunnels leading to the volcano's mouths and chose one randomly while holding his breath. Thank God! Felixs sighed in relief after seeing the beautiful crimson sky. Then he did the same technique as before to get a better thrust during his climbing. Whoosh! His car rushed through the volcano's mouth spinning like a bullet. However, this time Felixs didn't stop spinning as he decided to keep doing it, to push the free fall momentum even further. He wanted to obtain the best possible speed burst when his car glides vertically above the lava sea. And so, under the dumbfounded eyes of Marlian and the spectators, both on live stream and the stadiums, Felix's car span as it dropped like it was drilling the air itself. Boom! The sound barrier was broken even faster than before, but this time, Felixs cannot rely on the meterage to see his altitude as he closed his eyes to reduce the motion sickness that would follow after he glides. He was completely relying on his instincts to pull this off. 6800m, 5870, 4500 3300m. Pull! Pull now! The audience yelled out loud with hands in front of their mouths. Yet, their voices went hoarse and Felixs still didn't touch his spinning wheel at all. 2900m, 1403m. Pull already goddamn it! Marlian shouted as well with the audience. He didn't want Felixs to die anticlimactic death like this. But, during a fight for the championship, as that would be an epic ending for the game. Now, Felixs' closed eyes suddenly snapped open, as he clutched the steering wheel tightly to stop the spinning. Thankfully, that was easy for him due to his super strength. Immediately after stopping the car's spinning, he pulled the wheel towards him while simultaneously pushing the brake pedal to the limit. His calm eyes kept staring at the sea of lava that was merely a couple of 100 meters away from him, akin to staring right in the Grim Reaper's eyes. Nevertheless, that didn't faze him at all, as he kept murmuring gently, Come on girl, you can do it. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Please click number_475440706958685552 for visiting. Do itusl*t. Scared shitless, he roared one last time as his car whizzed vertically a few meters above the sea. He wanted to keep his calm and composed image through the end, but the lava sea was so close he almost peed his pants. That was truly a close shave. He did it. He actually pulled it off. Marlian and the spectators completely went bonkers after seeing Felix's car flying with unprecedented speed towards Absolute Vision, who had no idea that a predator was catching up to him rapidly. Holy, that was a stressful experience. A man said while wiping his sweaty forehead with his sleeve. My heart was about to leap out of my chest. Touch it. A cute female said absent-mindedly next to him. Sister, are you sure about it? He asked. F***ck, if you don't want to, let others do it. Another man jumped inside their conversation. Go to the side, she asked me. F***ck off, you already wasted your chance. Can't I ask for permission like gentlemen? The other spectators near those two pulled them away from each other. They were truly on the verge of ripping each other throats. It was clear that they wanted to vent the stress that Felix's dangerous maneuver put them through. Meanwhile, Felix rubbed his temples gently after a massive headache assaulted him immediately as he relaxed. Even so, a wide grin was on his face, as he stared at the tail of Absolute Vision's car. Let's see if luck is going to help you this time. Felix truly believed that the only reason why Absolute Vision was in the first rank was because of his luck. After all, his car placement was at the front row during the starting zone. Plus with his wide AoE blindness, he managed to break out of the pack easily. When they were still grouped in a pack, Felix saw a pitch-black domain that spanned 40 meters, put everyone near his car in utter darkness. Some cars escaped outside the domain safely while others weren't so lucky. Those 3 players from before were the ones who died in it. Meanwhile, Felix had eliminated a whopping 7 players while still being in the worst possible placement. Not mentioning the 2 times he failed to find the exit tunnel, during his first and second lap. So in comparison, Absolute Vision's racing was honestly a smooth journey. But that would soon change, as the serpent had caught up to him, and it's hungry for his blood after everything it had gone through to catch up. How did someone catch up to me? Absolute Vision didn't even turn his head or glance at the mirror to see Felix's car approaching him with 5 times his current speed. And what the hell is that speed? He must be cheating. He immediately called for the Queen AI to report him. Queen, I found a cheater. He said. ID name? She asked. Don't know, but his SG tag is Landlord. He replied. A second later, she responded monotonously, no signs of cheating has been found. Please don't make false reports anymore, otherwise, your account will be blocked for 15 days. This is your first warning. Absolute Vision neither had guts nor the time to lash at her, as Felix had almost reached him. So he focused on dealing with him first, then questioned Marlian later over that abnormal speed. Chapter 100, My Turn to Attack. Speechless, Felix inspected the smooth-looking black car that had neither windows nor launchers. The entire vehicle resembled the head of a pencil, sharp, pointy, and black. No wonder this bastard was so fast. He didn't modify his offense at all. Felix had a bad feeling about this. After all, to not have launchers in a car, it meant only 2 things. Either he was a melee form fighter like Ultra Craze or a mental type fighter. And it was clear in this case that Absolute Vision was a mental type user. The worst matchup Felix could hope for. Simply because the mental type users just needed to hide in a fortified box and abuse others outside without being endangered at any point. This signified that Felix's abilities were absolutely useless against this kind of opponent. After all, how the hell was his poison supposed to be absorbed when there was not a single opening in that car? The worst part about all of this was the fact that Felixs had to eliminate him now before his speed buff gets reduced. Although with Felix's current speed he could totally avoid fighting him and simply rush ahead. He understood that wasn't a real viable plan. Let's say he surpassed him, then what? His speed buff was not infinite. At one point, his car would start slowing down until it gets returned to its natural maximum speed. At that moment, if he didn't already reach the finish line, he would easily get bypassed by absolute vision. At the end of the day, who could contest in speed with that abnormal-looking car that was modified to mitigate as much wind resistance as possible? Thus, Felixs had to fight and make sure absolute vision fight back. He only had a small window of time, and he must use it efficiently to get rid of absolute vision here and now. Before long, Felixs and absolute vision only had 100 meters distance between them, and it kept decreasing quickly until it was merely 60 meters separating them. An optimal distance for Felixs to launch his attacks. "Let's fire 2 bombs to test the water," he said while creating 2 acid bombs. He chose this inducement with high hopes that it manages to corrode absolute vision's car. He may not have windows or launchers, but Felix's acid inducement still could corrode alloys, just like it did to Ultra Craze Chain. Without further ado, he put them in the launchers and fired them at Vision's car. He held his breath with expectations written all over his face. Poof, poof. Too bad, his hopes were dashed the moment he saw Vision's car shrugging the mist off like it was nothing. It just kept flying straight, totally ignoring his attacks, akin to his crush ignoring his greeting in public. "This bastard is baiting me to approach even closer." Felixs quickly figured out the cause of Vision's lackl.u.s.ter response. It was clear that Vision's mental abilities range was quite shorter than the distance between them. Although he knew so, Felixs still didn't slow down his speed, as the moment he did, he would be left behind forever. So, he could only obediently enter Vision's attacking radius while thinking of a new plan to get him out of this shithole. 50m 40m, 20m. Tempo blindness. The moment Vision noticed that Felixs had stepped inside his attacking range, he activated his AoE blindness ability. A sudden wave of darkness was released from his vehicle. It kept on expanding and expanding until everything inside a 40-meter diameter was hidden behind a dark curtain. The ability was dashing and flamboyant all right. But, did it have any effect? Nope. Absolutely nothing changed, as Felix's car just kept speeding forward unhindered. What a retard. So what if you blinded me? I can just activate autopilot and chill until the duration ends. Felixs thought while laughing in ridicule. Although he couldn't see even his fingers inside the curtain of darkness, he remained unfazed. He knew that those types of large AoE abilities consumed a massive amount of energy each second they were active. Hence, Vision would turn it off sooner or later after he notices that his attack was useless. It seems impossible to win this fight without breaching a hole in his car. I guess I am only left with that option. He pondered quietly in the darkness. It appeared that the blindness did more good than bad, as Felix's thoughts were clearer and more cohesive. "Queen, call absolute vision please," he requested. The Queen quickly did as instructed. Who is calling me now?" Vision wondered in confusion and asked Queen for the ID of the caller. "Sir, it's landlord, should I accept?" she asked. "Do it, what's there to worry about?" he sneered. Click. "Hello, dear Mr. Vision. Can you please answer just one question of mine and I will leave you in peace?" Felix's baffled voice resounded in the car. "Please ask away, Sir Landlord." Vision gentle persona that he used in the game hall swiftly resurfaced. "How the hell are you not dead with this trashy ability?" Felixs hastily added another taunt before the connection gets cut off. "Trust me, I had no idea how to deal with you before, but after you blinded me, I was suddenly enlightened. So I called to ask and also deliver my thanks. Sir Landlord, you only said this because there was no obstacle ahead of us. If we were in the canyon you wouldn't even have time to call me. Vision replied as politely as possible, trying his best to keep his nerves in check. Ha ha ha, so your ability is only useful in canyons? And you have the nerve to brag about it. Felixs yawned in boredom and sent him off with one last taunt. I feel bad for the audience who expected an epic fight between us. But it is what it is. He then cut off the connection between them abruptly, leaving the gentle-looking Vision with an unsightly expression. He wanted to retort but the bastard left as sudden as he appeared. Uf** asked for it. He snapped his finger deactivating his tempo blindness. Then, he gently removed the white bandage on his eyes, exposing two dark eyes without eyelids, eyelashes, and weirdly no pupils. They just showed pitch-black darkness, resembling a moonless night. The audience, who were laughing at Vision just a while ago, instantly gasped at his weird-looking eyes. Don't tell me that's a mutation from a bloodline. I believe that's a mutation from the epic Tier 1 Deep Abyss Bat. One of the few good mutations of that beast, as your vision might be blinded, but you instantly obtain an echolocation ability. So it is a trade between vision and enhanced hearing. A worthwhile trade honestly, since echolocation allows you to visualize everything in a 200-meter diameter. Indeed, though he quite looks ugly with those kinds of eyes. No wonder he bandaged them. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Please click number *47548013224189012 for visiting. Everyone got speechless after hearing a teenage girl say this. But they couldn't help but agree with her somehow. Fans had been always this shallow. Even Felixs, if he showed them an ugly face under his hoodie, they would instantly shun him and focus on others. No matter how one's unique abilities were, no one would want to look at your ugly face while casting them. Just like Vision now, who activated his peak ability, thinking that he looked dashing. But in reality, the audience only gave him expressionless looks. Felixs knew that after his taunts, Vision would lose his shit and uses his best ability. But that was exactly his aim, for Vision to use his peak ability and waste all of his energy or at least the majority of it while doing so. Come on, throw everything out. Calm and collected, he gripped the wheel tightly with both of his hands while wearing a belt that was connected with a metallic chain. Meanwhile, the chain was linked to a hard grip that was affixed to the door of the car. He was doing nothing but bracing himself for the impact. Abyssal screech. Cree. A sudden ear-piercing screech resonated continuously in the area. It was so loud, the wind kept vibrating each time the sound wave passed by. Crack. All of Felix's car windows started to crack each time they got hit by the sound wave. Sadly, it just kept on coming and coming non-stop until they couldn't handle it. Shatter. Pieces of the glass were hurled everywhere like sharp daggers, scratching Felixs all over. Thank God the majority of the pieces were hurled outside of the car, otherwise, the interior would have been razored. Uncaring about his bleeding flesh wounds, Felixs kept covering his ears with his hands while gritting his teeth in agony. He felt like his eardrums were about to snap at any moment. Yet, he could do nothing to defend against it or stop it. He just kept waiting until the screeching end. After a couple of seconds, the volume of the screech got reduced bit by bit until silence regained in the area yet again. Silence? I might have gone deaf. Nonchalant, Felixs touched his bloodied ears while mouthing off those words. Although he couldn't hear anything, not even his voice, he still smirked and licked his lips while gazing at the black car that he just surpassed by few meters. Now that you are out of gas, it's my turn. Felixs unbelted himself and stood up above his seat. He then crawled outside of the broken frontal window and crouched on his car hood with that belt around his waist. Whoosh! The wind kept assaulting him, trying to throw off, but Felix's fingers were dug deep on the car's hood, not letting him even budge. Dumbstruck, the spectators stared at this scene with mouth agape, not daring to believe what their eyes were feeding them. Landlord and elemental range user was also a melee fighter. They had no idea what they were watching anymore. But just the mere sight of Felixs crouching like that with a confident smirk and ears dripping blood, sent shivers of excitement in their spine over the upcoming epic fight.